Our story begins with our protagonist laughing maniacally after buying the limited edition golden armor, but immediately slips off his chair, breaking his phone and biting his tongue. He then rises up and decides it's time to get to work. The application allows you to both game and dream at the same time. He chuckles because, in that world, he is the best. The system identifies him as the first rank hardcore leveling warrior. He walks through a crowd of players, all of them enraged at him for stealing their objectives and that he only did it because he was bored. They all agreed on one thing, that he's a worthless trash bastard. The stares of everyone around him could just penetrate his armor. He skips through the crowd with his new armor, wanting them to be envious of him. Then someone approaches, asking if the leveler could give him 10 gold. Everyone in the surrounding area is in complete shock that this newbie would ever ask that devil for gold. The leveler pulls out a bag of 1,000 gold. The newbie seems to be completely overjoyed. That's when the leveler slaps him with the gold, dealing critical damage and killing the newbie, stating that he hates newbies that begs the most. Then, a PK guard runs over to stop the leveler, but before the guard could arrest him, the leveler bribes the guard, completely buying him out. He skips away carefree, while the surrounding players all vow to get revenge on him someday. At a quest house, we meet the loan shark, Heart Hitter, who is inquiring about 20 million that the leveler borrowed, and says that he isn't worried about it because the leveler is guaranteed to complete the SS rank quest, right, in a slightly threatening tone. While the assistant Rim is pouring coffee, Heart Hitter asks if the leveler likes the armor that he bought with the money that he borrowed. He smiles and states that he hates idiots the most, and those who borrow money and do not repay it back are the biggest idiots of all. Then he points to his display of fingers. This is the fate of those who fail to repay their loans. The leveler ignores his threats and tells Heart Hitter to just give him the quest. But before he leaves, he is required to sign another contract because he keeps forgetting about the money that he borrows from them. Rim brings them a new contract suggesting he should read it, but then the leveler smacks Rim for not having manners and only handing him the contract with only one hand. Then he signs it without reading it, saying he's the hardcore leveling warrior, and it doesn't matter how many of these little contracts they give him, he is the best, so they should hurry up and give him the quest. Heart Hitter smiles and commends the leveler for his guts for signing the contract without even reading it. The quest is SS grade, and the reward is 40 million. If you convert it to real money, it should be around 20 million. There seems to be an Imugi that keeps attacking traders. We then jump to a scene where the leveler is face to face with this Imugi. That's when the Imugi lunged at the leveler, opening his jaws as if to swallow him whole. No diddy. While trapped, the Imugi states that he finally caught the leveler, and his body is filled with deadly poison. Feeling some sense of confidence, the Imugi says no matter how lucky he is, he's completely helpless against the Imugi's poison. He insists that the leveler should just give up and become his food. The leveler chuckles and asks, "What the hell is this snake yapping about?" The leveler shreds the Imugi into pieces, showing that he isn't just any regular player, but he is the hardcore leveling warrior. Standing proud over his prey, the leveler proclaims how weak the Imugi was, and that it only served to dirty his brand new armor with its blood. After killing the Imugi, the leveler tries to register the quest as completed, but he couldn't, and he is now visibly upset that he went through all that trouble of dirtying his brand new armor for no reason. After cleaning off all the blood, the leveler is shocked because all the players decided to ambush him directly after he finished the boss, hoping to catch him weakened and vulnerable. The leveler raises his right hand, compressing hellfire magic into it, blasting the cliff in the direction of his attacker. Everyone is shocked by this and is wondering what his class is, because hellfire is a wizard's exclusive skill. With that one spell, everyone in the front line was killed. One green-haired player, with tears in his eyes, yelled out to everyone that he poured his entire fortune into this plan, and he yells for everyone to attack, not thinking about their mana reserves or their weapons, but pour everything into this fight so they could take the leveler down. Because the leveler is the only player in all of Lucid Adventure that has all stats. The leveler calls them all noobs. They all attack him simultaneously, but the attacks meant nothing because not one of them could actually hit the leveler. The leveler crouches down to charge an attack, and then dashes towards his attackers with unreal speed and deadly precision, cutting down every man, woman, ghoul, or monster that was standing in his way. Moonlight Slash is the name of the move that turned all these players into corpses. The leveler turns around, noting that he knew the battle with the Mugi was too easy. Standing before him now was a giant zombie dragon. But hidden under the corpses of all the leveler's fallen enemies, the noob, the player that the level killed earlier, was patiently waiting for his moment to strike. The leveler is aware of his presence, but seeing the attacker is too weak to actually inflict any damage, he lowers his guard and stretches out his hand to catch the blade. But to the leveler's surprise, the attack completely penetrated his armor. The noob's appearance glitches out, revealing the true face of the attacker. She asked the leveler if he thought that he would remain on top forever. Taking critical damage and stunned effects by the attack, the leveler was unable to evade any of the oncoming attacks. The assassins mentions that criticals and evasions are nothing but chance at the end of the day. The leveler just fell for his own trick. The leveler asks who the assassin is and insults her. She then goes on beating him up. Even though she's wailing on him and he's completely unable to move, she isn't actually able to inflict any damage because of his new armor. She then forces him to take off the armor, completely stripping him naked. The leveler screams out, but then the assassin steps on his head, forcing him to the ground. Fixed with rage, the leveler declares that he'll find the assassin and kill her. Even if he is forced to restart, he will find her and rip her apart. The assassin takes his items and is starting to walk away. She notes that the zombie giant is finally fully awakened, and she mentions that she heard that if he dies once, that all of his stats will be reset to 1. The leveler is completely visibly shocked that she knew that, and screams out, no matter what, he's going to find her and kill her. But before he could even finish his sentence, he was decapitated by the dragon. In the Eastern Kingdom capital, located in Yopiland, we meet a young lady who's been training in the mountains for the past year. She traveled to this country so she could try the food. She stands in front of the line about to try the specialty, but someone stiff arms her, cutting her off and buying the very last one. She asks him if he wants to die in a threatening tone. She then throws the money in his face and smacks the food out of his hand, and punching him into a wall, catching the food as it comes down, then enjoying every last bite, eating it as if she's never had food before. That's when she noticed there seems to be a fight going on nearby. After inspecting closer, she notices that it's the leveler himself, being held up by his neck. It was just yesterday that the leveler had max stats. Now every stat he has is set to 1, so he can't even beat the easiest monster in the game. A nearby newbie healer notices that the leveler was unconscious. Not knowing who he is, he tries to help him, but the leveler tells him to leave him alone. The healer is completely stunned that someone would tell him off when he was only trying to help. Takes a second look and realizes that it was in fact the hardcore leveling warrior. The healer grabs him and then ties him up in the middle of the town with everyone gathered around him. A lot of these people were players that the leveler killed the day prior. The healer heals the leveler, and without hesitation, everyone gathered around started beating him up relentlessly. The pain felt in game feels real, so in order to get revenge on the leveler, the healer keeps healing him up so he doesn't die. And everyone gathered takes turns beating him up to a pulp. The leveler then pledges to his revenge on all of them once he regains his power. He is then healed one more time and then instantly begs for his life, asking them to stop hitting him, but it's none other than Heart Hitter and his assistant Rim. Heart Hitter notes that he heard the leveler's rough story, and he heard that the leveler completely went broke. But he doesn't care what the situation is. Those who borrow money and can't pay it back are idiots, and the leveler is an idiot among idiots for asking for an extension with no means to pay. This isn't a simple debt in game. The currency in the game can affect the real world. He's willing to let the debt go because he is a valued customer. But before he could finish his sentence, the young lady earlier interrupts them, clashing with Rim, saying that they aren't allowed to touch the leveler because he is her precious person. The leveler is stunned because deep down he has no idea who this girl is. We then flash to 1 year ago. The leveler is 3rd rank at the time. We see him standing over a mountain of corpses. We now find out the lady's name was Sora, and she was saved by the leveler. When she was just level 30, he found her tied up on a tree by her wrists after he had cut down a countless number of foes in front of her very eyes. The leveler told her that this happened to her because she was weak and that she has to get stronger. So from that day on, she's been training in the mountains so she could eventually live up to the advice that he gave her. It cut back to the present, where we see Sora on the offensive, holding Rim off while Rim is in complete shock that the leveler had an ally this strong. The man that Sora punched earlier is observing the battle in the distance. He is apparently a general, and he requests for his associate Zhao Shang to retrieve his weapon, but she advises against it because he will get scolded by the Imperial King. She then reluctantly hands him the weapon regardless, and the general directs her attention at the battle ahead, saying he came here to catch a rabbit, and yet there seems to be a toothless tiger right in front of him. He smiles. Activating his weapon, the general announces that he will repay the debt he owes to him from a very long time ago, referring to the leveler. The leveler notices this attack and tells Sora to get down. A devastating attack slices through Rim, cutting him in half and destroying all the buildings in the background surrounding area. As the general is charging up his second attack, he is interrupted by none other than Heart Hitter, using a clipboard as a weapon. This is a testament to his strength. Heart Hitter explains that he only told Rim to scare him and that he didn't think Rim would get so agitated. The general says that Heart Hitter is an arrogant NPC. So, the general realizes that he removed his penalty forcefully and is about to use 100% of his strength. That's when a baby dragon's mouth comes out of nowhere and swallows all 3 of them. The general says that it doesn't matter if they run, he will just cut down the dragon as well. Heart Hitter taunts him and says the general should give his greetings to them, flying off and giving them no time to attack. The dragon grabbed them, but when he did, he grabbed a mouthful of rocks, so needless to say, it was a very rough ride for our protagonist. After a while, they arrived to the area of conflict, Dragon's Mountain. Once they arrived, Hard Hitter asked the leveler to follow him and that he would make him an offer that he can't refuse. The leveler asks Sora if she is coming along. She says of course she is, and that she would protect him because of a promise they made to each other. The leveler himself has no recollection of this promise, but thinks that if Sora knew this, that she would definitely kill him. There was someone already in the home, sitting in a chair. It was a boy that Hard Hitter and Rim addresses as boss. He asked the leveler if he is the hardcore leveling warrior. Based on how he was ordering Hard Hitter around, the leveler assumed that he had to at least be a guild master of a giant guild. The boss asks if it's true that you were the first to hit max level in this game. The leveler answers, "What about it?" The boss asks if the leveler can level him up. The leveler wants to know what he can possibly gain from helping him. The boss says, "Money," and that he's willing to pay 1 billion. The leveler smiles brightly, explaining that 1 billion is too cheap. In the middle of negotiation, the leveler was being forcefully logged out. So he explains he will need to log back in a second, and the boss lets the leveler know that he will be here waiting for him. And for the leveler to be careful. This slightly shocked the leveler, but he had no time to reply before he was forcefully logged out. The leveler wakes up to see that he's being carried by 2 men in black suits, much larger than himself, and demands to be let go. That's when they lock him in a cell, saying that if he wants to get out of here, he needs to regain his levels. A flashback to 3 years ago shows the leveler about to be thrown off the 4th floor of a building by Chairman Kim's henchmen because of his gambling debt. Chairman Kim coerces the leveler to join his workshop and play Lucid Adventure so he could pay back his debt. So the leveler himself was not a free man, but someone who is forced to play the game, Lucid Adventure, so that he could earn his money and pay off his debt. Back in the present, the leveler then logs back into Lucid Adventure and demands the boss pay him 2 billion to help him level up. They then head back to Yopi Land to make preparations, but the boss is weary and uncertain of the leveler's skills and wants the hardcore leveling warrior to prove himself before he is hired. Sora believes that the leveler doesn't need to prove himself, but in spite of that, the boss challenges hardcore leveling warrior to fight a green-haired player. The very green-haired player that beat the leveler to a pulp earlier. The leveler confidently accepts, saying, "Watch me, I'll show you how I fight." The leveler walks up to the green-haired player that beat him up earlier and slaps him at the back of his neck, making him drop his food out of his hands. The green-haired player, seeing his food is completely destroyed, enters a sudden rage, grabbing the leveler by his throat and threatening to kill him, saying that he will do it regardless of being in a safe zone. The leveler taunts him, saying that he can't because he's a good-for-nothing. But before the PK guard could jump in and stop what's happening, the leveler challenges the green-haired player to an official PK player-killer match. A PK match is the only duel in Lucid Adventure that allows the players to kill each other while in a village, aka a safe zone. Rule number 1, even if you kill your opponent, you will not become a red player. A red player is someone that has a bounty on them that other players can freely hunt anywhere. The players will state what they desires. Rule number 2, the NPC of combat will be summoned, and they will act as a judge. The NPC combat Daikon asks these 2 players what they want if they win the fight. The green-haired player demands that if he wins, he wants the leveler to quit Lucid Adventure forever. and the leveler demands that if he wins, he wants all of the green haired player's stats. The green haired player is shocked by the leveler's selection, saying that it isn't allowed, but the NPC Daikon quickly accepts the conditions. Because of the leveler's class trait, it is possible. The boss, named Dark, starts to wonder what the leveler's class trait could be. But before the fight could begin, the leveler taunts him once more, asking if the green haired player is actually afraid of a level 1. He then punches the leveler, launching him, saying that he won't kill him instantly because of all the people that were forced to quit Lucid Adventure due to the actions of the leveler. The leveler constantly swings at him, doing little to no damage, but in his head, he is counting the number of strikes in his mind. 88, 89, 90. While the green-haired player beats him to almost death and then heals him so that he could use him as a personal punching bag. 91, 92. The green-haired player declares that he needs to hit the leveler at least 100 times for him to be released from the anger. The green-haired player, consumed by rage, swings at the leveler, but the leveler dodges it, landing his 99th strike. But he then gets sent flying by the green-haired player. After countering him, he then stands over the leveler, declaring it's time to end this. While the fight is going on, a player in the crowd bets 100 million on the leveler. The green-haired player is about to finish the fight, but before he could, the leveler swings his blade for the 100th time, paralyzing him. The green-haired player calls the leveler a cheat, but the leveler just stomps in his face, winning the fight. The leveler then gains 3 rewards for winning the fight, but due to his level, he can only claim 1. The leveler says to himself that what he really needs is the luck stat, but which reward should he pick? The scene changes in Yopiland, Central Square. The Grand General Tech and the support player Lime caught some assassins. In the middle of interrogating them, another assassin jumps out at Tech, but he was prepared for the attack, swinging once and killing him immediately. But then, he goes blue in the face because he now realizes he can no longer interrogate them because he killed them. Then, we officially meet the person that placed 100 million bet on the leveler. Yopiland's king, Yopi, and his advisor, Pu Opu. The general, upset that King Yopi let him wait for so many hours, shakes Yopi while scolding him for making him wait. The general recognizes that the assassins were actually quite skilled, and they were 100% sent by the Empire. What their intentions are, we don't know just yet. Back at the levelers party, they accept a class advancement quest for the boss to become a dark magician. The boss realizes that the leveler is now at the same level as him and asks the leveler how he won the fight, but the leveler attempts to dodge the question, but the boss tells him that if he doesn't tell him how he won, then he won't pay him. The leveler lets him know that the sword that he used during the fight guarantees a critical and paralysis strike on the 100th swing, no matter what happens. We then find out the boss's name is Dark. Sora asks Dark how he can possibly afford to pay the leveler such a large sum of money. And Dark tells him that his grandfather is the chairman of the #1 company in the world. The day that his grandfather was supposed to write his will, he gathered everyone in the family and told them to log on to Lucid Adventure tonight. He is going to write his will there. But after he said that, he never came back to consciousness, and according to the doctor, it has been 3 months since then. But in Lucid Adventure, the friend screen says he is still logged on, but Dark hasn't seen him since. The Black Magic NPC welcomes the party to the dungeon, and asks who is the one to take the test. Dark announces that it's him. Then, with a party of three, they enter the dungeon together. But there is someone watching them from a distance, confirming their location with another figure over the phone, confirming that inside the dungeon it will be hard for Hard Hitter to stop him, so you will go ahead with the mission, and then he disappears.